Good evening, everyone. Oh, is that up and running? This is Robert Stevenson, Chairman of the School Committee. It is 5:04 on Monday, June the 15th. We are using a different video system here tonight, so hopefully this works out okay. Say anything, guys, you're gonna show up on the owl. We did this so it makes it a little bit easier doing the two interviews tonight for our superintendent position. Can I get a motion to enter into the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, can I get a show of hands to enter into the meeting? Amanda, let the record show the motion passes 6-0-0. Can I get everyone to stand for the pledge of? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does this still work? I don't see anything up there.
Change, sorry.
Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah, hit right on the X. No, right on the video thing. There you go, hit it. There we go, that looks, hang on. There we go. Perfect, we're back. Hey, so people that, oh, yeah.
Keep doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's weird.
this may be a problem.
For cancel.
Stay.
All right, let's see how this works. But now we're on to the other video, back to where we were, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it on? It's recording.
Yep.
Okay, well, maybe not. We might not have the owl working, so at least it's recording. All right, so just so that we can go over this for everybody, we have our two candidates tonight for superintendent that are going to be joining us. We have some people here in the crowd with us, which is great. We're going to bring them in. We have 7 questions that we're going to be asking them. We're going to work our way through them. They'll come in, introduce themselves, give us a little opening statement. We'll go through and ask the 7 questions. They'll be able to give a closing statement. We'll go through the 2 interviews. And then what we'll do is we will deliberate in public as a team and get to a point where hopefully we can get a motion put forward where we will put somebody's name forward that we want to fulfill our new superintendent role. That will start July 1 of next year. If we get to that, then we will go into executive session and figure out from a negotiation perspective, we'll be able to negotiate that contract. We are down 1 person tonight. So I just want to briefly give everybody a heads up when we get to the point where we do motions for superintendent. We are a group of 7 traditionally. Under normal regulations, you need 4 in order to have a majority. The way that our voting structure does work here with the regional school agreement, though, it is not a 1-to-1 vote. It is a weighted vote system. So every member from the town of Southwick has 16.4 votes out of 100. The representative from Granville has 14, and the representative from Towland has a vote of 4. Now, the way that works when we have all 7 is that you still need 4 people in order to be able to have a majority in order to do that. Tonight, because we're down to 6, that will make a difference potentially. But I just wanted to give that a heads up to everybody that we will need to just double check that on a weighted system to make sure that everything is above board and in good shape. Anybody have any questions on that before we move forward? Okay, all right. So Amanda, if we could bring in Ginger, that would be fantastic.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I'm gonna be taking a photograph from here. Could y'all move those water bottles just a little closer to your, just a little closer. There you go. Thank you. You can leave them on the table.
No problem. You gonna take a picture now, or is this at any time during the meeting?
They're in their talk.
Oh, okay.
And it's not gonna be of y'all.
No, I got you. I hear you.
And me, of course, because I'll be on the screen there.
Right, exactly. You'll be on there.
Do we need to move the owl since?
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good. Hello, right there, Ginger.
Okay.
Welcome. Good. Thank you so much for coming in.
I wasn't sure if you had air or not.
Oh, no,
We
you're
don't,
good.
so-
Well, we don't have it everywhere. We do have it in this room.
And
So-
in central office.
Yeah.
There.
So the other thing we'll say, just like we're in church, if everybody can please mute their phones. That would be very helpful for us. So Ginger, I'm going to welcome. Thank you so much for coming back.
You're welcome.
I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll just get to the instructions and off we go.
Awesome.
Jen, you want to start?
Jen Burkholder, school committee, Southwick resident, parent. Member here, so.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Morrissey. I'm also from Southwick.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi. I'm Judy Stanley from Holland.
Nice to meet you.
Rob Stevenson, we've met a couple times now.
Now we have.
I'm Ryan Krupka. I'm also from Southwick and a parent district.
Pam Petchke. I'm the representative from Granville. And I guess no longer a parent.
That's right.
Students in the district.
I remember. Did you survive?
I survived.
Oh, thinking about your next. Believe me, they're magical too.
All right, so tonight we have two candidates for superintendent that we're going to be interviewing. We've got a series of 7 questions that we're going to be asking to you that everybody had access to beforehand. What we're going to do though is I'm going to open the floor to you right now for a couple minutes for you to just do an introduction and a little opening statement. And then Pam's going to start with the questions and we'll hit you with those. So
Excellent.
the floor is yours, Ginger.
All right, well, my name is Ginger. I'm Dr. Ginger Coleman. I'm currently the Director of Student Services in Ware Public Schools. I have had experience as building leadership, central office leadership. I absolutely loved coming and touring your schools, especially while they were alive with the students. That was really like a very magical part of the day to meet with the administrators and to really feel, the lifeblood of it. It was wonderful. I really felt like it gave me some deeper understanding of your community. So I appreciated that your leadership team welcomed me in during that day. The process has been magnificent. I found it to be very professional and organized and very communicative throughout the process. And I like that I've had an opportunity to come together with all of the towns and the constituents and the stakeholders. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Super. All right. Okay. Pam, off we go.
I have the first question. A regional school district often includes multiple communities with different priorities and expectations.
Mhm.
How would you build a unified vision across several towns while still honoring each community's unique identity needs? Please share a specific example of when you successfully led diverse stakeholders toward a common goal.
I appreciate your questions and I appreciated having them advance as well, although I would be remiss if I didn't say that almost having them advance lets you really think so deeply about them that it was almost more difficult to find like which example because when you've been around for I'll say a period of time you have a lot of experiences to draw from. I feel like we have approximately 7 minutes per question, correct? So I'll try to keep that to keep within your time frame. So if somebody would just keep me on track. I do just have some bullet points. I feel that a leadership and vision is primary to the role of the superintendent. I think that you have to be looking 5 years out and in advance. I don't think you can go 1 year at a time because we need to be very foresighted in how we are looking at our needs and our trends and our data to make sure that we are thinking of potential issues, challenges, problems, and wonderful experiences that are out there. So we need to plan backwards, very much like a UDL. Our schools are really microcosms of our communities. So I think we really need to maintain that view from the balcony where we can take all of the competing interests from Southwick and Glen, Granville and Tallinn and see how we string together that common theme, our core values. So if you think about our core values as like our big rocks, the way the sand falls is very different, right? But the sand is where our job comes in. My job as your superintendent, as your leader. The sand could be the needs of our administrative team. The sands may look different from your elementary to your middle to your high school, but the big rocks, our values, what we've agreed upon as our vision and our goals, we are accomplishing that together. And the sand will fill it. That's our direction to get there. When we think about a specific way to get there, I think we always invest in our infrastructure. And in our infrastructure, I don't just mean our facilities, because your facilities really are gorgeous. They are very, very well maintained. You can see the pride that your custodians take in them. I mean, our people. And I think looking long term, how are we investing in them as a part of that? And are we looking ahead with our stakeholders to see how some of those needs might mirror some of our community's needs? So if I give you a specific example, I was in one very large citywide school, 21 different languages, extremely diverse, but no one came from the neighborhood. And I chose that example because you are very geographically challenged, shall we say. It adds some barriers, right? And in that situation, I feel that it mirrored your community. 21 languages, students came from all over all of the boroughs of that community. So transportation was an issue. Parents didn't have cars. Are we on a bus route? How do you increase? And our chronic attendance was significant, over 35% chronic attendance. How do you vest people in the community? Our goal was to improve that because of the outcomes. We were looking to improve our student outcomes, but we really needed to define that. What does that look like? What does an improved outcome mean? Are we looking at reading? Are we looking at literacy? Are we looking at writing? But the first thing was the parents and the relationships that we had. Some were resistant. So we started off with a very low key events. What types of events? When do we have those events? Who is able to attend? We created believe it or not, something as simple as trick or treating was an experience that many, many children did not have. Trunk or treating was something that also did not exist and could not exist in that community. But we wanted that experience. It was something that people really felt was valuable. So we created an entire evening event. It was trick or treating through the hallways. It, gave an experience, but it was beyond the school. We opened it to the neighborhood because we're citywide. Most of our students did not hail from our community. We realized that we needed ways in which we needed to connect our parents to each other because they had no natural way to connect. There were no citywide park and rec teams. So we created a youth baseball team. And we started to have practices immediately following school. And then we created another team so we'd have a team to play. We enlisted a close walking school that might be able to pair with us to participate in our practices to develop that. The parents could come, they could watch a game, you connect the parents, you connect the students. It was, I would say, like no pressure for the parents to be able to come in and experience school without having those academic pressures to have an academic conversation at the table. So those first experiences were just positive and celebratory. And that grew into a youth soccer league that then grew into another one. And we did all of that with the help and the donations of if there was a travel soccer team, they donated all of their old their uniforms, their cleats. And so there were ways that we enlisted many different stakeholders that wanted that to grow to meet the needs of getting our parents really into the school and connecting them to each other. So that would be one way I would say we were looking to and attempting with the languages as well.
Right?
Imagine the district is facing a significant budget shortfall while costs continue to rise and communities are resistant to increasing assessments. How would you approach balancing the budget while minimizing the impact on students, staff, and programs? Walk us through your decision-making process and communication strategy.
Well, welcome to Massachusetts. I think 57 communities right now are experiencing budgetary shortfalls, staffing reductions, really, really difficult decisions that are affecting children, right? And ultimately our communities and what we can offer. And those are powerful decisions because we know that the schools ground people to the communities. People move to the communities because of the schools, because of what we can offer beyond the community at large. So I think those conversations start early. I mean, very early. For me, they're starting July 1. We're looking at our, what are we getting for circuit breaker? What is our 240? What is our 262? What does our chapter 74 look like? How many school choice kids are we bringing in? We don't have METCO relations like you do, but we would be looking at that. We're looking at how many students are we losing. You're looking at the same things. Your enrollment is predicted to decline by 2% over the next 5 years. Every year, a 2% decline over 5 years is significant. And that's what, the predictions look like right now. So right now, I would be saying we would be planning to experience that, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10%, anywhere between a 5% and a 10% decline in student enrollment, unless we are planning for that and maintaining the students that we have and attracting new ones. So I would say by November, we are having subcommittee meetings. We are bringing in our leadership team. We're having them build their budgets from the ground up. We're looking at our numbers and we're looking at the impact on students. What are our class sizes? Do we have an interventionist? How is the interventionist being utilized? If we've hired a coach, and I know that we've hired some coaching positions here, are the coaches being used to, pass the chalk? And are they coaching in real time? Are they coaching our teachers so that we're developing their capacity through that professional development? And do we have a plan beyond that? Are we being really foresighted with the positions that we have? We have to remember that budgeting is so personal. It's so personal because it's the work that we do. We work in a people field, right? And so we can't dehumanize the process, if you will. I mean, we talk about positions, but those positions are our neighbors, they are our friends, they are our beloved staff. And sometimes in those budgetary conversations, it's very hard to tease out the position from the person, which is why you need to elicit all of your stakeholders. Your town manager should be involved, your business manager, our curriculum people, our special education department, the school committee, through all aspects of this, our teachers, our union representation, our students, what is it that they're looking to gain? This is a pre-K to 12 conversation. And I think sometimes we forget it's a pre-K to 12 conversation when the budgetary is only affecting maybe a high school or maybe an elementary. But really, it's how we string these experiences together so that we all achieve that same desired outcome. And if our budget is really, truly built valuing the students, really, which is what we're all here for, we're all prioritizing the students. And sometimes those are harder conversations to have because it's tied to a person. So I think really remembering that we have to communicate that out. And the numbers aren't the same until really we're done with the process, but you have to have those conversations. You need scenario A, this is utopia, we're getting everything that we want. And then you should have, here's your B plan and here's your C plan. And I think people need an opportunity to weigh in on that. I think we need to be having community forums and say, this is what we're bringing in, this is the impact that this could potentially have on our community. I mean, your small community has grown by 100 people over in the past, 100 years, 40 years. I mean, no, really, like longitudinally, there's not a lot of growth there. That's very impactful, because you're still tied to this community. You still need to have a voice and a choice in what happens because your children are coming, but you can't control the growth rates based on, your zoning laws and, housing and property. So we have to factor those in and make sure that we are sharing that information, and we need to be transparent about it throughout the entire thing. And the data that we report needs to be accurate, so that when we go back to the table, people really have a clear understanding and that they have from the beginning. There should never be a surprise. You shouldn't be hitting budget season and go, jeepers creepers, we are $200,000 in a deficit. Where do we recover that? Where's the rainy day fund? Where do we make that up? Because that's people's livelihood, and people do this work, not just because they love it, but because they also require it. But it's a a position, it's a people profession, you know? So that's how I see the work.
All right. Suppose a serious incident occurs in one of the schools that quickly gains media attention and creates concern across the district. What immediate steps would you take in the first 24 to 48 hours? And how would you maintain trust with the students, staff, families, school committees, and the public?
Unfortunately, there have been too many incidents like that, and nowadays there are likely more. So I think really thinking about your emergency preparedness and your response. I think you practice how you play. So, and I've said that I'm a big sports nut. I can't help it. I coach, I play, you know, so anytime I can bring it back to sports, I likely will. And I think that's when you really lean into your teams. And if your plans are comprehensive and thorough, when an emergency happens, you become, you know, command central, and then you need to lead your team very, very clearly and directly, because in times of crisis, emotionality can play in, and you need to be the calm through the storm. And I jest a little because we had a little of that in one of our town meetings. And it is, you need to be able to manage the situation and others' emotions while still leading. So I would immediately be contacting the school committee, likely the chair and the vice chair. I would call with any big emergency response, and then that would be memorialized later with an email to the entire committee. I would also want to see how the committee operates and works together and what your chain of command and your reporting is. In my current district, the chair did not want to be the only person contacted. He was fine for the initial, but all of the members wanted to share the information equally so that all of the information was shared and there weren't bits and pieces, so that it was thorough. From there, could I go right into my example?
You do whatever you want.
Okay, I think this would help play it out. So school committee contacted, handle the crisis. I'm going to go right into the crisis. We had a very significant year, my last year in the city. We had 3 deaths. We had 2 student deaths, and we had the death of a parent, and we had the death of one of our staff members. So one of our experience was a parent coming to visit a student at the school prior to the opening of the school. Upon his departure from the school, the student was coming into the building with our counselor, and the father was on the crosswalk and he was hit by an ambulance directly in front of the school with a crossing guard on the crosswalk. It's very traumatic. And obviously we were all stationed outside. So immediate call to the superintendent, there's a situation, we have a crisis involving an ambulance, and we will be needing police. In addition to that, there is the likelihood of a significant tragedy, maybe resulting in death. At this point in time, we're going to implement all of our crisis protocols. I will advise you once I have contacted the families and I have locked down the scene, because our scene, we needed to manage the scene and we needed to manage the message. Now, remember, this is a citywide school right in the middle of a very, neighborhood, industrial type of a neighborhood. The student was brought into the school. The other biological parent was contacted immediately, advised of the situation. Student was with the counselor, never saw any of that. We brought in our Jersey barriers, which we had so we could immediately lock down all exits and entrance to the school, as well as one of the roadways. That was a main roadway in the city. So while that was being navigated, the person that initially saw it was inside debriefing so that we could get a statement while it was top and fresh of mind, which sounds maybe unreasonable, but you want all of the details as fresh as they are, as raw as they are in the moment, because we knew that the district attorney would then be involved. We knew our lawyers would be involved, because we were also monitoring the outside scenes. The secretary was handling the internal, no students were in or out, the Jersey barriers, the custodians and the teachers all had their shades drawn. And when the crews came up, we have immediate contact. The media contact had been reported. They knew this was a youngster, a very young child, and we needed to worry about the safety of that student as well as the safety of all of the other students that may have had other very significant traumas that we needed to protect them from, as well as some of our staff, knowing we had already had those other losses in the building. So when the media came, the scene was recorded, but the school was not included in some of those background. We sent out an immediate all call within the first 20 minutes of the incident because we knew the parents would know that the roads were closed. So that they were aware there's an incident that happened directly in front of the school that did not involve any of the members. That message was recirculated. And then after the scene was cleared, the scene has been cleared, all things are safe, the students are safe, we hope for, you to wrap your arms and love around, the people affected by this event. And then later with permission, we would have shared any of the additional details. Only our school committee had the details, as well as at that time, my superior, my chief schools officer. And then looking to see if we needed any support, but by the time they were able to arrive on scene, the scene had already been cleared and it was business as usual. And we were operating and going right along our instructional day. Communication is key because you don't want people to create their own narrative and you want them to have enough information while protecting the privacy so that they're aware. And I think that settles people. I think the lack of knowing, just leads more opportunity for you to create your own story. And that doesn't help anything in the long run. Then you're putting out fires instead of quelling it from the beginning just by being very honest and open.
Regional districts often require strong relationships with families, municipal leaders, and school committees from multiple towns. Can you describe a time when you faced strong opposition or criticism from a community group, and how did you handle the situation? What did you learn from
it? Thank you for that. Well, I'm in special education, right? And I say that as a joke. Because I say that because I think the work is really valuable. When you work in special education, you tend to work with people through sometimes their first form of grief, if you will. Some people feel when their students first qualify that there's a lot of emotions involved with that. And I think that's when people are the most raw. And so when I say that, I really do mean that. You have people advocating for their children, fighting, for their child. And let's face it, we have one chance really to do this and to get it right. And we're on a very limited timeline. So I did experience opposition over the past few years. In the original question, I think there was a layer about the role of the superintendent and trying to kind of help quell that. And so we experienced transportation right out of the gate. First year, new district, transportation. You can imagine, you're geographically challenged, but special education transportation is a qualifying factor. It's a related service. Out of the goodness of some people's hearts, sometimes transportation is there, offered and available, but we have to remember that not only are we working for the district and that we do have the budgetary concerns and we need to do our due diligence. We also have to remember that we're doing our due diligence by the students too, and that they need to qualify for that. But how we arrive for providing every student with a van pool transportation for extended school year when those same students were not on it during the year, out of I would say out of our zest to do well, we were actually really violating, some of their rights to be in a less restricted environment, which was riding on a big bus with their peers. And that was immediately right out of the gate, first, year in. You don't want to make big changes like that. They came out of somewhere. And so we did experience some opposition because there was a lack of understanding. And so there was some education that needed to happen to understand that our students in special education were also everyone else's students. That when we were planning for our summer enrichment and our credit recovery in our 21st century, that our students who were included all throughout the year were also included through our extended school year, just their needs were different. It didn't mean that they needed to be removed from the same opportunities that they had year round in order to get the services we were providing. That just may have been different than the services that were provided elsewhere, but they could still ride together. That was a very large expense that we had incurred while people were understanding the process and understanding the impact. And out of our zest to do well, sometimes we had to go back and really lean into like the regulations and, you know, the laws that really guide us. In that situation, I think the role of the superintendent is really to help people understand, you know, understand what that issue may be at that time and to really help quell the message. We've talked a lot about, you know, being a prophet, we'll say, in your own land, or being, you know, the messenger of, you know, your own mantra. And that's very, very difficult. As the superintendent, you need to take on some of that messaging that might be difficult. You need to take that from your team so that those people have the opportunity to do the work and you're setting them up for success, knowing that some of those conversations may be difficult. You are the one that takes it on as the leader so that the people that need to do the work are set up to do that work in a way that lends itself to the most productivity, not in a way that creates barriers.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
What's up?
Equity and student achievement. Data shows achievement gaps among student groups across the district schools. Question: what strategies would you implement to improve outcomes for all students while ensuring equitable access to opportunities, staffing, and support services?
Thank you. Well, I kind of spent my whole life fighting for equity and student achievement. And if you look at my resume and turn around where instruction really is really where it happens. I think that improving student outcomes is what we're all trying to do, but the outcomes we're looking for vary depending upon the needs of that district. Looking at your district, even though you've achieved pre-pandemic success again, which is really lovely. So you do still have some gaps, but you've also recouped some gaps. So that says a lot of what's happening at tier 1. And I think that's wonderful. But if you look at your chronic attendance rates, they're still pretty significant, right? 20% for most of your categories. Your junior year dropout rates are pretty high right now. I would wonder what's happening junior year. That was something that just kind of like popped open to me. I didn't see those same rates freshman, sophomore, or senior year. That would be important to explore some of that data. When I was peeking at your MCAS, you could see that over the years you had made some of that growth, which was really wonderful. But I think you would need to work with your central office team. I would want to work with your curriculum director, your special education director, your reading specialist, your interventionist, your coaches, and we would have to dig deeper into that data to make sure they understand what the new data is telling us. Are we using more than that? Are we using our iReady data? Are we looking at our DIBELS data? Do we have, maybe we're using Haggerty as an intervention at the elementary school, or maybe we're using something like UFly. So do they understand what the data is telling us, and how do we synthesize that data? Or is it just, are we on a data overload and we're not sure which data points or how to string them together to really help us? Because the data with the equity, to me, goes right back to our vision. So if you think about question 1, without that clear vision and that strategic plan, all of these are those rocks that we talked about in the sand that's going to fill that. Haggerty, iReady, pieces of the sand, Dibbles, pieces of the sand. You're using SIPs, I believe, for your instructional materials. You know, we would want to look at that. Is it meeting the needs? Are our students reflected in that? So really exploring that data and measuring and aligning. So are we looking at that once again? Is that a pre-K to 12 conversation that we're having about the data? Does our data look really wonderful pre-K to 2, but then we're looking at our 3 to 6 band and something's going on there? Then that's a 2-3 conversation before they're transitioning. Maybe that's a 6-7. You know, what do we need? How are we stringing our bands together so it's always a pre-K to 12 conversation? And we might have pockets of real wonder that we want to dig into deeper. There's pockets of joy, and we're like, what happened there? Let's look and let's lean into our educators, because sometimes there's real magic there. Maybe they're doing something that someone else needs to do that, which is why those conversations have to involve all of the stakeholders, and we need to make sure that they understand the information that they have available. And sometimes there's just too much right now, unless you're a data expert, to really be able to tease it out, to know, what are those vehicles that are driving you.
Jen?
Staff leadership and organizational culture. You inherit a district where morale is low, trust between administration and staff has eroded, and turnover is increasing. How would you assess the situation and rebuild positive culture? What leadership practices would you prioritize during your first year?
I think education right now is at a very transitional time. I think after COVID that our educators have really experienced a lack of respect, shall we say, for the profession. And I think that it's taken time to rebuild, in addition to some of the cultural challenges that maybe districts are experiencing. We have the heightened pace of accountability. MCAS is gone, but it's not gone, right? We're still held, to that standard, even though the parents may think like, oh, it doesn't matter, we don't have to take it, but we're still accountable to that. There's so many competing interests that we have to be there and available to support our crew. And they need to know that, but not from our words. They need to hear it from our actions. They need to see it in how we are communicating with people. Where are we showing up? I call it like intentional visibility, if you will, because those conversations happen outside of the boardrooms. They happen on the soccer field when you're meeting the parents. They happen in the classrooms, just as I was fortunate enough to meet some of those AP Lit kids, as well as the kindergartners that really did also have great questions. So I think intentional visibility is important. I also think really having the ability to be adaptive. I think it's really important to be vulnerable and to be adaptive. I think it's okay to say, hey, we don't have all the answers right now, but we're going to look for them, and we're going to look for them together, because we're being open and we're being honest about that. And I just can't say enough about that. I think when trust is broken, trust is a foundation, I feel, in all of that. Your beliefs and if you think about it, our pyramid, we think about our tiered instruction, right? Without that foundation, if your core values, your beliefs, your mission, if all of those aren't the same, it's really hard to move that needle. Can you be too persistent? I say no. So when was the time where I was too persistent? My entire career. And anyone that knows me would tell you that is true. And I think it's important that you know that, because you really need to know that that's me. We have 13 years, and that is it. And if you have kids, 13 years goes by in a blink, and we have 13 years to educate them so that they are global citizens, so that they are out there. And so I do feel that we always have that pace. We do need to have a peppy pace, but I think we have to modulate that depending upon the feel and the climate of our educators and of our staff And when I say our staff, I'm talking about our paraprofessionals that need training and coaching. They're dealing with very significant needs. We need to invest in all of our staff, our teachers, our paras, our custodians. And so when we think about it from that lens and really like investing in that and adjusting the pace, we're always going to have a really peppy pace, but we have to read the room and we have to know when they're saying like, this is just too much. We might have to slow it down, but we're always bringing it back to that goal, right back to that vision. This is our mission. If we believe that all kids can and they will succeed, then you're right, the work is really hard right now. And so one of the ways, if you're looking for that specific example, we had a school district, and one of the schools was really, in a way, their data had some areas that really needed to be improved upon. Being a new leader, you need to sit, you need to listen, you need to understand that historical perspective so that you can understand not just where you are, but how did you get there? Because that story, that narrative matters when you're talking about culture. I could come in and I could say, I am your leader. I have all of the answers. I don't. I have rich, great experiences in multiple locations and with different communities, different needs that allows me to draw from a very robust well. So in this situation with much staff turnover, high student behaviors, 2 months we sat, we looked, we listened, question after question, meetings with community, students, teachers. And we said, look, we're doing a remodel. And we try to put it into a context people can understand. And that's where I would make that connection. Our school right now is a kitchen remodel. And we have all decided this is our outcome, just as we would with our school vision, right? We've decided, we've taken all the pieces, we've picked the tile that we want, we've got our plumber and our electrician, and we're ready to go, right? And then we tear down the wall and we think it's going to be perfect. But what do we notice? Oh, we've got some termite damage. So now we need to repair that. That's kind of what coming into a new place is. It's looking and listening and stringing it together and understanding that sometimes you can't plan for things, but if you're invested and you know where you're going and you've decided as a team that that's where you want to land, when those little hiccups happen, then you're like, okay, so the tile's delayed by 2 weeks. We're waiting 2 weeks, but the tile's going to come until the tile's on what's our next project to go through. And I think that rebuilding mantra was able to frame the work in a different way for the staff because it did feel so personal and they were working so hard that it's hard not to personalize your scores when you're just entrenched in it. But when you say we're all entrenched in it and we're working so hard and this is our common goal, and you always bring people back to that goal and they understand that there's going to be things that just you can't control and come out of the way, but you're going to overcome them and you're going to do it together. And you're there to help guide them through the side, through some of those challenges that all growth takes. Growth is change and change is hard, and it's hard to do it alone. And you need somebody that is going to support you, not get you. When you fall down, if you really want people to take risks, then they need to know that they're safe to do that. And that was part of the way that we did that. We took it as this is just baseline. We don't know what we're going to find, but we're going to dig through that together. So let's get our gloves on and our goggles on and do it together. And at the end of the year, we had more growth than any other school in the entire district. And it wasn't the leader to me, it was the staff. They believed in it, they followed in it. And I just say that's what leaders do. You just bring teams together.
All right. Pam, last one.
Regional district must often balance short-term pressures with long-term sustainability. If faced with declining enrollment, limited budgetary funds, and competing capital priorities, how would you develop a long-range strategic plan that gains support from all member communities?
Thank you. Well, I think that goes right back to your vision. When you are doing your strategic plan, you should really be planning like 5 years out. I would also look into the committee to see what type of budgetary parameters or process it is that you would like adhered to and followed. We would have to be predictive in some of our needs, looking at our chapter 74, looking at what are some of the pathways that were offered. We have 18, right? 18 students that participate as a freshman, but where do they go by senior year? Which pathway did they choose? Are they on a pathway? Our data doesn't show where our students are going on the DESE website. It says other. Are they choosing 2-year? Are they choosing 4-year? Are they going into a trade or a profession? That data wasn't available. I would need that data to know where to go, but that would be tied into our vision. If we were looking at increasing our enrollment or maintaining our enrollment, we would need to know, what are we planning for? What opportunities are our kids leaving us for? Is there a way for us to develop and build that here? Are we partnering with, Mass Hire? Are we giving the kids paid internships and opportunities? Are we partnered with Springfield College? And I think of Springfield College because I didn't see that connection, but I know that you have a very large neurodiverse population beginning to develop here. We have excellent fields. You're noted as a recreational community. Therapeutic recreation is something that's really on the move, and we lack resources. That might be a resource we might want to work with our stakeholders in our towns about bringing in, so that we have opportunities here in our own community to generate revenue to bring in other communities that don't have therapeutic recreation. And here with the lovely facilities that you do have in the outdoor area, it might lend itself naturally to that. It might also lend itself to some of the college and career programs that they have there. I think we need to lean into some of that. There were 2 companies in town for your manufacturing, and one of your pathways was your manufacturing and your automotive that seemed to have had, the highest interest rates. Are we partnering with them? Do we know how our students are coming out? Are they taking those jobs? If they're not taking those jobs, what skills are they lacking that need them to be more ready to be able to walk into the door and immediately have that pathway? Because you have many things that are in and available to the students. How do we capitalize on those and make sure that what we have still meets the long-term needs of our students in the communities, not just we have this pathway because we have a pathway, but maybe we need to reconsider the pathway. I think that's really important for us to consider as we're doing that long-term planning, that we're always looking forward because our needs do change, and our students' needs change.
All right. So 7 questions are done. You did fantastic.
Great, I tried to really try
No,
to.
you did good. You did good. So I'm going to let you sort of give us the last sort of closing statement, and then your time with us this evening will be over.
Okay. Well, I did have a question. That would be acceptable. So, my questions for you, I just had 2. So in 3 years,
Mhm.
at the end of 3 years, what would you have hoped that we would have been able to accomplish together on behalf of our school district and our students?
Here's my coach. Well, can you be more specific? I guess there's.
Well, we're working as a team. We
Yeah.
would have goals, right? Improve student outcomes, big lofty,
Yeah.
but what does that, what does respect look like? When I think about like respect, and some of your values, what would that look like? Would that mean professional discourse? Would that mean our students, their chronic absentee rate had dropped to 10%? Would that mean that we were able to come around the table and agree to disagree, but walk away with a shared understanding and more knowledge where we came back and revisited again? I'm curious, what does that
Yeah,
look like
I
to you?
think that she almost looked like she was.
So, I mean, I think I would say that by the end of year 1, many of the questions that you asked about, like what does the data show? Are we utilizing our resources? By the end of year one, those types of questions should be answered, right?
Agreed.
And then after that, I would say, I think that we can move towards improving morale and trust amongst everyone, not just within the school communities, but within the communities as a larger function. And always working towards our vision of what our graduate should be. And I think that we've made strides in that in recent years. I'd like to see us moving forward. But I think that trust and morale and respect and communication, I think those are all priorities that a superintendent should be able to certainly address within those first 3 years.
So I was gonna piggyback on Pam, 'cause I hope in 3 years, we're working towards getting back like school spirit and that community feel. So I'd love to see more of, I was a Ram myself, so getting back into like people going to our sporting events, supporting our student athletes more. We had one student who reached 1,000 points in basketball, and that was an amazing game. We had all these people there, but it'd be great to have that same kind of support throughout the season, not just at this one momentous place. And then also having our communities, even I went to school here too, and there was always like this division between South of Granville Tolland students, and having them just really feel like we're all a community, regardless of what town you grew up in or where you live now. We're all part of this one district community.
It was one of the things that I wondered about. It was when I made the little pencils, because I didn't see really any branding here. And so I did see what you stood for in words, but I didn't see a real portrait of a graduate. And I had inquired with Dr. Bonneville at the high school, and she had said some of that work was done. But I just didn't see that out there. I saw, even tonight when I drove up, I saw the Ram in blue and gold on, probably there, maybe from graduation, that they had put up. But like, what do we stand for? I was looking for, our t-shirts and, Rams all over there. Like, we do need that, because that is a way to brand and bring people together.
From the rec center.
Exactly.
Nearby, so getting our young students and athletes to go with the big one.
Right, and how do we welcome them in? Do we have, did we do anything with that? Because we're a Ram, but does the Ram stand for anything? Maybe that's the mantra, and the Ram is standing on the town of the mountain, and all of the pillars and those rocks that they've climbed is that pre-K to 12 journey. But we have to have people believe in that. What is the challenge we're accepting, and how are we doing it together? So I think more could be done with that, so that we really see our students in there. And I think that would be a way to bring them together, because really the goal and the vision is the same. You all have students, you all want the best for them, and we all want to do it together. But we need to market that. And that is something that I would probably want to do right in there and work with the team, instead of just having the respect, achieve, and measure. But you are right, we do need to measure what matters. And that would be done by the end of the first year, like you stated. Any other questions?
No, you said you had another one for us?
She answered it in
Oh.
the first one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna do our second interview, and then we are gonna deliberate, and we will get back to you guys tonight.
Excellent.
What's going on?
It
Thank
was
you so
my
much.
distinct honor. It really was my honor and my privilege. And I certainly hope, if I am not your chosen candidate, that your other candidate, if selected, just takes the reins and continues to move your district forward, because there's just so much potential here. I hope you realize that you really have just such a sweet gem. And it was my privilege. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, does anybody need to do a quick little bio break before we go to the next part? Okay.
Update. Game started at 5:30.
I don't know, I'm still.
Yes, we're still live.
Top of the computer, so that-
Man,
Yes.
what, we're gonna do voting for
About what?
signatures
About what?
for, I'm just trying to remember what the action items are we need to do here. We need to do for the summer warrants, we'll take a vote on that.
Oh, we have to actually vote on those? Okay.
Well, no, well, that's, one
From
that
Karen Parker.
Karen gave me, we need to vote on that.
Okay.
And
We
then-
can add that to the.
isn't there one? I think with an action item that we also needed to do.
To move into executive if we needed to.
Yeah, no, but I think there's another one too. Hopefully it'll come to me before we get to that point.
Wasn't anything to do
Oh.
with it.
No, it was, we don't need to take an action item on. There was a question that came up last week at the rec center about the motocross. But we already voted on that last year that we were gonna have the rec center do that, so we don't need to we don't need to vote on that anymore. I just need to let, we need to let building and grounds know that they just need to stake out the field the weekend before, or during the week before. I'll get you the date. I'm pretty sure it's the
I got it.
11th.
No, it's 22nd.
What?
Isn't it later?
No,
Hold
no.
on, let me find my soccer.
I think it's the 11th or the 10th, the 11th, 4th.
Sounds right.
11th, right? Does it sound like the 11th?
You're right, the 11th.
Yeah.
I wrote a story about it now.
So that's why I kind of looked at you. I'm like, wait a minute.
I'm like, wait a minute, volunteer,
So-
sound like soccer.
Yeah, so we just need to, the week of the 11th,
Mhm.
okay, we just need to make sure that buildings and ground, they've done this every year.
Okay.
We need to stake out where they don't want us to park along the left-hand side, and we just need to make sure that they mow up top and down below, so that we can get the cars in there. And then the rec center will make sure that they clean up everything the next day, and then they just pull down the stakes on Monday. And there's another thing I'm supposed to vote on, and dang, if I can remember where it is. Can't start the checks because we've got that one. Oh, God, there was something else. That would be helpful.
That owl thing was tested and was totally working. I had everybody come in here and sit down and it was
Okay, it
tested.
was working when we first started. I don't know why it's.
I decided not to.
It didn't like.
It just was.
So is it Bluetooth connected? Or is it?
No, it's hardwired. It's hardwired like.
Yeah,
under the
and
table.
now it's because it reverted back. It reverted back.
Unplug.
It's
That's what I'm
almost like
wondering.
it
We
took,
have young people in here.
it almost looks like it grabbed the other video.
But you guys out, but.
Everything's plugged in.
It's all right. We've done it this way. It's all right. I do think that we ought to.
Invest in one.
Yeah, I think we need to.
Yeah.
From somebody who watches this on the TV, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. There we go.
This, they.
It's difficult to
Setup you
see.
have now.
It's difficult to see,
It's
especially
difficult.
when we go and we put stuff on the board, because then this gets small.
You can't tell who's talking.
Right.
Even if you were to identify yourselves.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell who's talking, the way the cameras
Yeah.
orient. And I've tried.
And you know most of us, so we'll figure it out.
When I do the minutes, sometimes I'll go back and watch the
Yeah,
video.
no, I
and
know.
try to see
I
it.
think
Yeah,
people,
it's nice.
it wouldn't be the worst investment in the world to get an owl,
The
so.
transcripts are great. Makes it a lot easier.
Oh, does it?
Oh,
Oh, it does transcripts on it? Oh, okay.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we borrowed this from the town.
As long as you turn on the closed caption,
Yeah.
it'll create a transcript.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like an AI kind of thing?
The company I work for has a transcript.
Speaking of that, I thought we were gonna discuss with your group whether they were gonna donate one, right? Remember? Remember you were supposed to ask?
I know, I haven't seen Curtis in about a month. So I haven't really had.
Now that comes up, I remember you and I were talking about this, that we were gonna see if maybe the reminder was gonna donate one.
I'll check with Curtis. I will, I mean,
Maybe we could, you know what, maybe we could go halvesies on it with you. You could donate half and we'll pick up the other half. That way it'll make your job easier.
let me talk to Curtis.
See, I think that's great. I think it's a great idea.
Curtis operates the pop network. You've seen
Yeah.
those things. So he has this tendency to come in around 7 o'clock at night and load up things for the next day. So we sometimes never see him
That's
for
okay.
weeks. And
Send them an email and just say that we had a conversation that's live and recording right now. And we're trying to see if maybe we can work in partnership.
and do that.
See, that's it. That's like partner everywhere. Like, that's great.
Curtis is very open at those times.
See, and that's all recorded now, Cliff. So it's live and recorded that we're gonna talk about it. That's awesome. All right, we're missing.
So, yes, it will.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's go get our.
People coming
Oh.
in.
What do we got? More people
There's
coming?
some people coming in.
Oh,
Coming in.
okay.
Wait a minute. Or-
What are they here for?
Well, that's
There.
okay.
Let's find out if they're looking for us.
Next one.
Oh. I'm about to be in. You just-
Nice to meet you, Rick.
All right, yeah, we're ready. There we- All right, so we'll do the same order of questions that we're good, okay? Good. Okay. Technically, we're starting early. This is-
What time was it? That hasn't been. She's like. It's a foot taller. Maybe like close to, right? So every morning. Location.
So there you go. That's good. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
Welcome. So thank you for being here promptly and early, because I just figured out we're actually 7 minutes early, so. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna give you an opportunity. First, welcome to our school committee meeting. Thank you very much for your time and being a participant in our search for a new superintendent. In a couple minutes, I think it's okay. We're gonna just, we don't necessarily need to introduce ourselves, because Ms. Carrier obviously has been into almost all of our school committee meetings. We're gonna give you an opportunity to give us an opening statement. We then have 7 questions that we are going to ask you. And then we're gonna give you an opportunity to give us sort of a closing statement, and then we will, after that, have a quick little break, start our deliberation, and then see if we can come to a decision as to what we want to do. So with that, I am going to open the floor to you. On you go.
Okay, so I did prepare my opening and closing statement. I felt that, while I don't want to read to you, I did feel like it was best to start myself with a pretty organized statement, because I knew I'd be nervous. So I am seeking the superintendency because Southwick Town and Granville is not just a place where I work. It is a district that I feel I've helped build. It is a place that I've chosen for my family. And most of all, I feel like I know the potential that we have, and I want to help bring that potential through. Before coming to Southwick, I've served in 3 other districts. I was in each of them long enough to learn from them, learn their successes, see their challenges, and I've taken those lessons with me when I came here 8 years ago. Those experiences have helped me to really shape my leadership philosophy. They've given me a broader perspective on what works, what doesn't, how districts can successfully navigate change, and the pitfalls that come up. Today, I feel I bring the best of both worlds. I have the insight and perspective of an external candidate who has seen multiple systems and approaches, but I also have the deep understanding that an internal candidate has who knows our district's people, who has had an intense experiences with our culture, know our challenges, know our strengths, know our opportunities. When I arrived at Powder Mill 8 years ago, it was essentially 2 schools under one roof. I had brought a focus on relationships and student-centered academics and shared ownership, which really transformed the school. We were able to rebuild staff trust quickly, invest in the students, and build a community that really believed in itself. That experience really taught me that when conditions are right and you're able to create the right systems, a district is capable of extraordinary things. At about 6 years ago, I made the choice to bring my child here. She school choiced here. I saw this as a district where I wanted to raise my family. They say it takes a village, and I recognize that this was a village that I wanted my child in. I began to see our community in a different way. I saw firsthand the care and compassion of our families. I saw the commitment our staff had to our children and to our broader community. I know that being here is not something abstract. For me, it is a continued part of me rooting myself in a community and in a district and in a staff that I see as so very strong. Last year, I moved to central office. People often wonder why I made that move, because I will tell you, being the principal of Powder Mill was the most amazing job I've ever had. But I made that switch because I knew that what Powder Mill had created was not unique, that it was about creating the right conditions. And I believed, as I do now, that under the right conditions, what was happening at Powder Mill could happen for the entire district. I knew that strong centered academics, shared leadership, and trust between administration and staff was going to help our students flourish. And I felt like I can bring that to central office. And now I'm seeking this role as an opportunity to really step forward and say, I want to make something special. I bring not just theoretical ideas, but definite skills. First and foremost, I'm a systems thinker. That means that I'm always planning on how is this going to become a process? How is this going to become something we do all of the time so that it's not based in personality or in a person? I'm also a coach-centered leader. I am recognizing the strengths people have and bringing out the leadership in them and coaching them, modeling for them, so that people are becoming more than they thought they could be. I am a person who communicates with transparency. Communication is a hallmark of my style. I am constantly in communication with families as a leader. And even in the role that I am now, where I don't have a lot of communication with parents, I have communication with the staff and began staff newsletters, really trying to bring that style. The next thing that I have is the ability to move from ideas to execution. We are a small district, and at times we overlap roles. Sometimes you're able to build a team that's going to work on something, and sometimes you take something from beginning to end. And I think that's something I'm able to do. I can have that big picture conversation, but I can also be the person who finalizes all of the details. I would also say that I am calm in a contentious situation. So when things can get difficult, I am able to remain calm and transparent with people. And finally, I think I use humor and warmth as part of my relationship building. Parents and staff see me as a human. They see me wanting what is good for them, and they know that I'm in their corner.
So to really kind of bring it all to the end, I feel like I have the qualities that we need, the skills that we need, and the experiences that we need to take Southwick Holland Granville to the next step.
All right, perfect. All right, Pam, you're up.
So the first question is about leadership and vision. A regional school district often includes multiple communities with different priorities and expectations. How would you build a unified vision across several towns while still honoring each community's unique identity and needs? Please share a specific example of when you successfully led diverse stakeholders toward a common goal.
So I think that the role of the superintendent is to help communities discover shared values. And that can then drive a vision. So for example, we know that families across all 3 of our towns want safe schools. We know that families want strong academics for their children. We know that they want caring adults to be in charge of their kids. They want opportunities for their children to thrive. We also know that community leaders want all of that in a fiscally responsible way, right? So the role of the superintendent is to start bringing all of those common ideas and letting people see that while approaches and identities may be different, in the end, we are working towards one goal, right? How do we do that? I think that we start with a strategic plan. So each year we have a strategic plan, and we are due to do a complete revamp of our strategic plan for for school year 28. So going into next fall, 2 falls, we would be having a new strategic plan. In the past, that strategic plan has been, there has been input, but it has not been done via committee. So the first thing I would propose is that we would do a planning committee for our strategic plan, and we would have all stakeholders represented. The benefit we have is that as a superintendent-elect, I have the ability next year to do that, to build that type of group. So having parents, having students, having staff, having community and town leaders, having civic organizations, and of course the school committee and admin all together. We would begin with a review of data, looking at our achievement, our attendance, looking at demographics, staffing trends, gathering input from organizations and our community partners, doing surveys and focus groups. One of the things that we need to start talking about is what makes us STG, what is the good, what are those things that we hold dear. And we need to have obviously town leaders in these conversations. Then we need to start synthesizing all of this information, drafting a plan. And I think it's really important that after we draft a plan, we put it out for feedback. The plan each year that we write, the strategic plan, is brought only to school committee for feedback. And that's something I think we need to change. 2 years ago, actually last year, I brought pieces of our strategic plan to individual faculty meetings for feedback so that staff could really start talking about what was in the plan and letting us know what we thought needed to change. That is something we need to do. The second part of the question is, when have I done something like this? And not following this exact system, but when I arrived at Powdermill, I mentioned that this was really 2 schools. We had a 3rd and a 4th grade. We had a 5th and a 6th. The 5th and the 6th had been part of the middle school, and the 3rd and the 4th had been part of Woodland. And they were really accustomed to running in very, very different ways. And they were very focused on those procedures. And so what we started to do was move from the how into the what, and talking about, we want to see kids growing. We want to see kids transitioning safely. We want to see kids, and we talked about what kids should be able to do. Then we talked together about what does that look like for each diverse group. So it doesn't look the same for a 3rd grader as it does for a 6th grader. However, there are end goals that are the same. So we are able to start building, what I often would say is unity doesn't mean uniformity. So we can be unified, for example, under a rule that we want students following, but it doesn't mean that the application of that rule is uniform. It may look different. A 3rd grader consequence may not be the same as a 6th grader consequence. The lesson that a 3rd grader gets may not be the same as a 6th grader gets when we're talking about how to transition. So it's really about looking at those commonalities, seeing that bigger vision, and then realizing that each of the groups, each of the identities can be realized in that. And again, when I think about our 3 communities, we know that our parents want many of the same things. We just have to understand how best to communicate and how best to get feedback on what that is.
Super. Thank you very much. Right.
Imagine the district is facing a significant budget shortfall while costs continue to rise and communities are resistant to increasing assessments. How would you approach balancing the budget while minimizing the impact of students, staff, and programs? Walk us through your decision-making process and communication strategy.
Okay, so we have a couple of things in the question. First is approach. So I think that fundamentally we need to have an approach that asks the basic question: what will the impact of our decision have on students, individual students, groups of students, and the entire district? And we need to be able to communicate when we're making decisions what that impact will be to all stakeholder groups, so that they're understanding the underlying decisions behind what we're doing. Now, we also understand that there's confidentiality in that. Please know that I realize it's not always communicating directly, but it is still looking at criteria and having people understand that criteria. So what is the impact that this will have on possibly individual students, possibly groups of students, and of course on the broader student group as a district? I know that people are not always agreeing with budgetary decisions, but people deserve honesty and transparency, and they need to know how decisions were made. So that's really important. When I look at the entire decision-making framework and I pair it with communication, I would follow a pretty straightforward approach, starting with fixed and mandated costs, understanding those best, getting a handle on them, and then communicating that to our populations, all of our stakeholders. What are our current fixed costs? What are our mandated costs? What will they be in the years coming? Next, looking at trends, we need to examine and have been our enrollment trends. We need to continue looking at staffing patterns, looking at how we're staffing all across the district. That is something which we have not done on a large scale well, I think, in the past. I think we've still been too segmented at times. Next, we need to start, and this is new, pricing out our foundational commitments. What are the things that we as a community value? What are those things that are the foundation of who we are and how much they cost? We often talk about new initiatives. We don't often talk about what it is we're committed to. And some of those things could be extracurriculars. They could be class sizes. So we need to start really looking at those things and laying that out for our community so that people are understanding, this is what it costs to run something. This is what we believe is important. We all need to know what that value is. I've said before at other times, our budget tends to be looked at as an end number. And so we need to start breaking this down in a way that people are understanding. So fixed and mandated costs, looking at trends, making sure that we understand the prices of our foundational commitments. Then we start looking for those opportunities, of course, to reduce. I would stay away from anything that touches student safety and student success. We need to protect essential services. We know that we currently have a inclusion model, and we need to, as a group, continue to believe in that model, and we need to fund that. We need to honor, again, our commitments and look at our strategic priorities. So those are the steps or the approach I would take. Again, I think communication along the way is something that we started this year, and I know that as a team, you have all started talking about what that looks like. I was really excited when I started to talk about this on the internet with people and put it out on social media for the first time and start explaining it. I also was really excited to have conversations with teachers. So I put this in a teacher newsletter, and people started to then say, oh, I read the newsletter. Can I ask you more about this? Because I didn't understand it. I ended up sitting down with a couple of teachers on a team who said, hey, we really didn't get all that. Can we ask you more? So I think that we need to continue that communication and those conversations in even a better way. I will say, I feel like I came into it late this year. I started it because I was seeing a problem and I was reactive. But again, that was something that I jumped into because I felt like it was something we weren't doing that we needed to do better. And so my plan would be to be far more proactive and to be paralleling the situation. As we're completing a step, we're talking about that step. And I think that we have to show that we are fiscally responsive while we are protecting our students. And that can be difficult, but I think our community wants what's best for our students. They just need to understand how our decisions are ensuring that.
Super. Thank you very much. All right, so crisis management. Suppose a serious incident occurs in one of the schools that quickly gains media attention and creates concern across the district. What immediate steps would you take in the first 24 to 48 hours? And how would you maintain trust with the students, staff, families, school committee, and the public?
Okay. So I think you guys, by the way, liked to sneak in multiple questions. Like, I know you were saying that there's 7, but I do not think there are 7. And that is for the record, okay? So this question, we have 2. We have crisis management and we have trust. And while they're related, they are 2 very big issues on their own. So to start with the steps in a situation. So first and foremost is always ensuring staff and student safety. So before any decision, before any thoughts, before any communication, it is making sure that everyone is provided for in that situation, activating our protocols. So we're removing the dangers, making sure that the situation is stable, and we're focusing on our people to begin with. Coordinating with police, fire, our legal counsel, and of course the school committee, always keeping you guys in that loop, but doing that first so that we are stabilizing what's going on. Next is establishing a chain of command, depending on the situation. So what you guys had brought up in this question could be anything, right? This could be something from a student situation that has been brought to the media, but it could also be something where we have, a rogue parent who has come to the building and caused harm. So there's a lot going on in here. So establishing that chain of command. Sometimes we know that once we activate our protocols, for example, if it's a safety situation, that takes care of itself. Those things are already all designed. We just completed this past spring a tabletop exercise of a potential school shooter. It is not something that you want to do, but we always practice. And so we have a clear chain of command, a way that we're going to gather accurate information, who's making decisions, and we actually even have a media liaison in those situations. So, that is one kind of version. We have other things that are far less. I think of the time we had to evacuate because we thought there was a gas leak here at Powder Mill. And so again, you're making sure everyone's safe, making sure everyone's near where they need to be, making sure coordinating with all of the proper groups, and then establishing that chain of command, making decisions, and then starting to communicate. This question leads into this trust part that you added. And I think one of the first things we need to talk about when we talk about communication is we have to have really strong known channels of communication. People need to know where they're going to be getting their information, because that's the first part of trust. If they know and are regularly getting information, then that is your first step, right? They know that they're going to get an email. They know that there's going to be a text. They know that this is how they're going to hear what's going on, and they turn to that. When people don't know how you're going to communicate, that's the first step in a problem with trust. Trust is built before the crisis and is tested during the crisis. So, you need to have those known things. I will say, having been in a bunch of different situations, families don't always expect us to have an answer. It's not that they want to know immediately the entire thing, but they want honesty within student privacy, we know, but they want to know what you do know, what you don't know, and then what you're doing. I think of the flood here, and people wanted to know what had happened. They wanted to know what steps we were taking and when they were going to get more information. And by providing that, that really went a long way to people knowing, okay, they don't have all the answers, but this is what they're working on, and I know I'm going to hear from them in this window. In a vacuum, we know we're going to have anxiety. So it's really important to have those touch points. People know when to expect the next message. Also, I think it's really important to be as direct as you can when dealing with this situation. That is going to be something that's going to build trust. People like the information to come in a way that isn't flowery, I would say. They want that information to be very direct, something that they can count on. If people are nervous, they want something that's easily digestible, right? They want to be able to look at it and understand it. They want it to be direct. They don't want to read into it. They don't want to wonder what you're trying to say. They want it to be direct. So as the superintendent, I would remain visible, I would remain calm, and I would be direct and transparent. I think that doing those things in a situation really lends itself to trust. And again, I would always say, trust isn't built during the problem, it's tested. And my goal would be to always have that trust going in. And I think that as a leader, I've done that.
Super. Thank you very much. Judy.
This is the question about. Sorry,
How much pain?
very well.
Sorry, I gotta find out.
Little jet lag. Community relations and communication. So regional districts require strong relationships with families, with municipal leaders and school committees from multiple towns. Can you describe for us a time when you faced strong opposition or criticism from a community group? How did you handle the situation? And second question, what did you learn from it?
Yes. So I can think of a few different times where there have been issues that were really controversial or just had a lot of strong emotion. One, I think that has affected us here in Southwick has been instructional material review. That is something which we've seen families very concerned about, and on the other side, we've seen teachers who are very nervous about. So we've got these two groups that at times can be at odds with each other. And I know that this was something that was kind of people tried to kind of keep to the side and not take on. And so I was very proud to take this on last year and begin with it and look at creating a transparent process, bringing in stakeholders and thinking about what is it that parents wanted to understand if they were worried about what materials were being used, thinking about teachers and how to best use teachers' expertise to review materials so that teachers felt empowered as decision makers. I wanted there to be agreed upon criteria. So looking for criteria that weren't based in either group, but were based in policy in this case, and then follow through. Because follow through is the most important. So having that follow through so that people knew that that was taking place as it was supposed to. So that's one example. I was involved in a far more controversial example when I was in Westfield with redistricting. So Westfield closed a school while I was there, and those students were being absorbed by two different schools, and I was at one of the schools that was absorbing students. And that was a very, very difficult for those families. And I think for that situation, one of the most important parts was being transparent about why decisions were being made, giving people the facts and making sure they understood the reasons behind. Also, because we know that the parents were very emotional at that time, listening to and validating their concerns, understanding what it was they were worried about, what it was about the school that was closing, that to them was very special, and what did they get from that school that they worried they would not get at the new school. And then ensuring they got it. And when I say ensuring they got it, it meant literally I had students at the prior school who had never ridden a bus because it was primarily a walking school. And I went on the first day to a massive bus stop. That was one bus stop was the full bus and helped kids learn about getting on a bus because I had students from K to all the way to 5th who had never ridden a bus. So follow through and letting the people know that, yes, we're in a difficult situation and this is what you fear and this is what you're worried about, but I see that, I hear it, and I'm here with you for it. But really understanding what they feared and making sure they had the information to help with that. The last thing I would bring up that was something controversial that I wasn't initially involved in was our PACT group. So we had a PACT group come out of our hate incident 2 years ago, and that group began with the best intentions of bringing people together to talk and to share and to start promoting that compassion. But unfortunately, it didn't have direction and it started to get unruly quickly. So I volunteered to step in and help. And so I wasn't directly involved necessarily in the controversy. However, I think that what I brought to it was a person who listened carefully, who listened respectfully and listened to understand what people were bringing. And I listened without being defensive. That was really important so that everyone who was there, who was part of that committee, who wanted to be heard, had that ability for me to take that information in, then to be able to use that information to come up with purpose for the group. So we ended up creating some action items, a number of action items that were then eventually worked into the strategic plan for the district. Right, so I think that that group had at times a lot of energy, both good and bad. But I learned really carefully, really quickly, that listening carefully and understanding, listening not to hear and listen, but to listen to understand was a big piece. Yeah, so I think when I take all of those situations, the things I know is that opposition comes when someone really cares. People who are really vocal about a situation, they do so because they're invested and there is an emotional passion in there is a caring level. And it's really important that we not minimize their concerns. Legitimate concerns need to be heard and understood so that they can be addressed. And I learned finally not to be defensive. I learned to use that situation, to use those times as times to grow. Times to grow. It might not be the opinion that I've had, but I need to understand this person and where they're coming from in order for me to support and help in this situation. So that tends us to the second part, which was media. So that whole answer doesn't even address the second part. So I do feel like our superintendent has to be our chief communicator, and that includes with media. And we need to have a relationship with the media. We need to have relationships with our newspapers, with our TV stations. We need to have, and I need to have, as the superintendent, a relationship with those groups. I would begin with an introductory meeting with some of the people who are most closely involved. That introductory meeting would be just hearing from them what they're doing and how I can best support it from my end. What are the interests? What are they looking for? What do they need? What is the best way for me to communicate with them? What is the best way for me to share information with them so that I can then be that supportive person? You need to establish yourself as really a responsive and reliable source of information for all the local media within the confines of privacy, which I'll say all the time. I have had two situations, really kind of one continual that I would bring up. So around 10 years ago, I was on the board of a local private school, a local Catholic school, and that school was slated to close. And we had a major media push. So I was on the board, I was the president of the board at the time, and with the group that I worked with, we built a media campaign to try to keep that open, to keep the school open, providing information that we had about the diocesan offices, about financial information, and we, really worked with our media partners in that situation, and had to answer some difficult questions when the diocese fired back about the school that we were representing. But in the end, that school stayed open, and I really contribute that to our work with media partners in educating the larger community on what was happening and how decisions were being made, and that pressure that then came to bear on the diocesan offices. Fast forward to COVID, and I actually got a call from a media partner who was working on mass appeal and completely not related to St. Mary's, but knew that I was a school administrator in the community. And he called because during COVID, he said, I really want to do an interview on what families should do when they're home now, and they're trying to support their kids who are kind of doing this hybrid homeschooling. And this was really early on when we all had no idea what was happening. And we were kind of sending home some work, and we were like emailing kids. And so I was really, surprised when I got the call, because to me, I had only spoken to this person about the St. Mary's issue. But what I realized is I was seen by him as a reliable source of information on schools. And that's where he went to. And there's no reason why the superintendent of Southwick can't be seen as that reliable source of information. I look to Westfield and the superintendent Zaborowski. You often see him commenting on things that are happening that aren't related directly to Westfield, or he is maybe commenting on how it's affecting Westfield. But I think that he's often seen in the papers and on TV because he has put himself as a reliable source who is very willing to work with the media. And so that would be what I would want to be, is a reliable partner to our media.
Okay. Yes. Data shows achievement gaps among student groups across the district schools. What strategies would you implement to improve outcomes for all students while ensuring equitable access to opportunities, staffing, and support services?
Okay. So equitable access really means that students are getting what they need, right? So making sure that for each student, those needs are met. And I would employ pretty much 4 basic strategies, and they are what I think really drove the change and the growth we saw at Powder Mill over the years. The first is access to grade level material. And that means we need HQIM, and that's curriculum. That is proven, vetted curriculum that we know provides grade level information and that meets the grade level standards. So bringing into reading, bringing in illustrative math or examples of that, moving into open sci ed at the high school level, looking at, we're looking for social studies at investigating history. So bringing in those materials and making sure students have access to that HQIM, which is just the fancy initials for how to qualify instructional materials. Next, making sure students have evidence-based instructional practices being used in their classrooms. This is training for our teachers to make sure that the teachers are using the instructional practices which we know work. That is our science of reading. That is all of the training that we did way back with Mike Flynn in math, but making sure that we have evidence-based practices. That can mean the interventions we're using. We went from a few years back using like an intervention which was, well, they're struggling in this, I'm going to pull here, I'm going to pull there. And now it's no, we're going to use programs that we know have shown results. We're not going to pull a little from here and a little from there. We're going to use proven instructional practices. Next is using data to target for students. So that means we are looking at the information and determining who needs intervention. There was a point at which many districts, not ours, this is not just an us thing, many districts, you only received intervention if you were a special education student. And what we know is that students start to have some difficulties. Many of them can be caught up. Many of them can get back on track with the proper intervention. So using that data to catch students early and make those decisions and targeting that instruction. And then using more data so that when instruction is not working, we're increasing either dosage or we're increasing the frequency so that we know that kids are able to have what they need. And the last thing is high expectations for all. We need to believe that every student can succeed, and we need to make sure that we're giving them what they need to do that. High expectations might sound like it's an obvious, but it often isn't. Often when we see students struggling, we start to think to ourselves, okay, this is going to be hard for them. Maybe I should use it. No, we should use it. We should scaffold it so that they're able to access it. So I am really proud that here at Powder Mill, using those strategies, we have seen ELA scores, which we know right now look to be outscoring the state. We know that our accountability percentile, which back in the early 2019, 2018 was actually in the teens, is now at over the 50th percentile for accountability. We know that we are one of 63 schools in the state that have returned to their pre-COVID MCAS. And I am proud to say that I presented on this to the Mass School Administrators Association last year. We are becoming leaders in this work. Mike Pescatelli and I worked with a number of administrators on how they do this and how they work with their schools and their teachers to build the same setup for them.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You're up, Jen.
All right, this one's on staff leadership and organizational culture. Okay. You inherit a district where morale is low, trust between administration and staff has eroded, and turnover is increasing. How would you assess the situation and rebuild a positive culture? What leadership practices would you prioritize during your first year?
So, having been here, working as a district employee, not just at Powder Mill, I've really already started assessing this and trying to start the inroads. So I think the first thing is to listen and learn. And you do that best by being visible. So I am a very visible presence in the hallways at all 3 schools, so that I'm able to see things happening firsthand and hear things and be available to staff when they need to ask questions. The other thing that I've done is to start to build trust through consistency. So doing what I say I'm going to do. So by being available to teachers and then following through when I am asked questions, when I'm asked to do something, that has become the process really of assessing. That needs to grow, obviously. So next, I would think about listening sessions with staff. One thing I would like to try doing, which I haven't done before, but I would really like to try, is a stay interview. So we often talk about exit interviews when people are leaving. But I think we have some teachers who've been here a really long time. And it'd be interesting to start doing some stay interviews and talking to them about what do you like and love, what is difficult. And looking for staff who come here initially and hearing from them, okay, you switched. What are you struck by during that switch? What are the things that stand out to you? Before they become just like, oh, that's the way we've done it now. When you first get to somewhere new, you're kind of like, oh, I didn't know you would do that. And it's interesting to see both the good and the bad. So I'd like to start doing those as my next step. Then, of course, communicating these findings, making sure I'm circling back with teachers. And again, with that communication, so they know that this is what I'm hearing from you. This is what I'm seeing, and getting feedback really on what my findings are. Right now, I would say that the themes that I do see are trust and communication. I think workload and resources is a big conversation that we need to start looking at. Another theme is voice. I think that many staff are still feeling like they want increased level of voice, and that the voice is who's loudest. And that is something we need to really change. And finally, I think that we lack a culture of appreciation. And so that's something I think we need to start really working on. I think we're building it for sure. I think that we've made huge inroads in recent years at each building, but I still think we need to do that in a more sustained way, so that appreciation becomes part of who we are. So those are the kind of steps I would look at for assessing leadership practices that I would be prioritizing. And really, when I say that, I would really be working a lot with the principals on making sure they're prioritizing them. And I in my current role, I mentor all of the principals directly, and would continue even as superintendent to do that, and would really work with them, because it's one thing for me to exhibit and to have this as a priority, but I really need the staff to do that. I need this to become how we do business, if you will. So the first is shared leadership. That was something that we brought to Powder Mill, and we have cohorts that would make decisions. So teachers would self-select. It would be during staff meetings, so that it was not outside of their time. There wasn't an expectation that in order to be a leader, you had to stay after. That's difficult if you have young children, if you have, there's a million reasons why, you have an elderly parent that you see, you have to let your dog out, we don't know what it is, but shared leadership opportunities built within their workday. Next, I would work with all three principals on visibility and presence. That is a priority. We do paper when the building is shut down, but we do people when they're here. And that is a lesson that my very first superintendent always said to me. And I think that it is still important, and it is difficult. I'm not going to say it's not, but that has to be a leadership priority and a practice. Next, direct and transparent communication, which I've mentioned a lot already. Next is something that I think I do well, which is coaching and modeling rather than directing. I do not tell people how. I may work with them around, okay, so what are you seeing? And they come to me with an idea of how. One of the principals might say, well, I have to do this. And they might give me, so I'm thinking, I think I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna do this in a meeting. All right, okay, well, let's talk that through. And I will coach them through what it's gonna look like and try to build for them, instead of saying, no, I would not do that. That's an awful idea. I will coach them through. And sometimes my coaching may lead them to realize this is not probably the best way to do it. Maybe there's a better way, but often it becomes then something that they own, but is done in a way that's going to be successful. So I would continue to coach and model with staff. And last, and I've already mentioned it once, but is building trust and follow through. That has got to be a priority, is really saying what you're going to do and then doing it. And just always having that follow through.
Thank you. Pamela, finish your thought.
Oh, I get the panel.
It's on your nameplate, right?
This is true.
It is.
There's people that say Pamela, there's others that say Pammy.
I did both. Well, I didn't do Pammy.
Yeah, that's
right.
right. A regional district must often balance short-term pressures
Mhm.
with long-term sustainability. If faced with declining enrollment, limited budgetary funds, and competing capital priorities, how would you develop a long-range strategic plan that gains support from all member communities?
So I'm gonna kind of bring us back to my first question, when we talked a little bit about strategic planning, and one of the things I talked about was having a planning committee with representatives and stakeholders from all the communities. And so I feel like that is the first thing is looking at that group and having all of the communities involved in it. Next, I would really think about what our strategic plans look like. We write strategic plan really for a year. It's in a multi-year cycle where we only do sections of it each year. However, it really only addresses the initial steps we're going to take. And so one of the things I think we need to do is we need to start making that a multi-year plan. It needs to have in it a longer path, right? We need to say, this is what we think we're going to do in what year 1, year 2, year 3. All right. And then when it gets to year 2, you're moving that up. It's becoming your new year 1 and you're revising but you're always projecting out multiple years. All right. So we in the past, as I said, have not done that. We have made updated where we said, well, this is a 3-year, and we just leave it the same instead of really talking about what the next step of that 3-year would be. So really changing our plan from a 1-year project to a multi-year project. Next, I think we need to work with the business office and do some multi-year financial forecasting, and we need to work that more directly into our strategic plan. We need to have that information be part of it. Our strategic plan really tends to be what we want and what we see, obviously for students, but it does not mention the hows, how we're going to pay for it, how this is all going to be affected. And we do this also with when we make decisions for our budget, right? We're not planning multi-year. We're hoping each year that our financial situation is as bad as the previous year, but we don't necessarily have a long-range plan that we're looking at, okay, in the future, this is where we're looking. For example, I know that the high school had staff that were let go this year and last year. And to them, they're thinking, how come we're hit? And if we had a long range plan that said, okay, we're going to be looking at this first, which was that we were going to look at elementary, then we're going to be moving to examine more staffing patterns as those students move up. If we had been clear what that looked like, it would have made a lot more sense because we would have had that communication previous and we would have been able to be transparent about our decisions. We're looking at small groups moving through K-1-2. When they get to 3rd and 4th, we're going to make changes at Woodland. When they get through 6th grade, we're going to be making changes at Powdermill. When they get through 7th, we're going to be looking at high school. We didn't communicate that. And so our strategic long-range planning, those need to be tied together. We can't have a 1-year strategic plan. We need to have a 3-year, and we need to be very clear that the budget is part of it.
Awesome. All right, so our 7 questions are done.
Yeah.
Or as you say, 14.
14.
Or 18.
That's don't get.
I didn't know only was 1 A, B, C. It's okay. So we're going to give you an opportunity to give us a closing statement or a final goodbye, whatever you want to put on there. But floor is yours again.
Okay, so I do have a basic kind of outline that I created for you on this side of an entry plan. I know that is something that is often done by superintendent candidates, just so you'll know what to expect initially. It's a little different because as superintendent-elect, it's a lot more of a learning plan and really an investigating plan. But I did talk about strategic planning. I talked about staff morale and budget in it. So I do have copies if you guys want to take those afterwards. I talked about all of it really already in here, but it just gives you that kind of to refer to. So that is there. But in my statement, my closing statement. So I do want to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the process and for your 14 questions. As I really think about my career, and I think of the roles I've had of being a teacher, assistant principal, and curriculum director, the one thing that stands out is that in all of those positions, the importance of strong relationships, building strong schools has really come through. When I think about my time in Agawam Junior High, I know that my relationships with students were really what helped my kids learn. When I think about being an assistant principal, again, it was my relationships with teachers and the support that I provided them and knowing that I could be counted on. That's what helped drive forward the school. Same as principal and curriculum director. Having strong relationships, having high expectations for kids, and always partnering with families. I don't know if you all have, our big packets with all of the letters of recommendation, but I'm really proud of my letter of recommendation from Sarah and Ryan Hedges. They were a family who in the beginning, they struggled and they did not have trust. And the day that, and it's in the letter, so I'm not giving anything away, the day that they came in with their son after finding out some big information, they in their letter say that looking at me and knowing that I was there for them was what made a difference. And so partnering with families has been, but I can't even say it's life-changing. It is what makes this so important. So, I am grateful for having been part of the important work that our district has done. I'm grateful for the people who have supported me in Southwick and the people that I've been able to support. I know that in the coming months and in the coming years, we are going to have important work. I know that we're going to have difficult decisions. We're going to have financial challenges. The state, who knows what they're going to come up with? They're just going to come up with some curveball because they feel like it. But I see opportunity. I see opportunity for Southwick to be a district that rises to meet these challenges. I see our three communities as far closer and more united than they believe. I think that they just need to remember that we're all in it for kids. And if we can get people to come back to, we want safe schools, we want schools where our kids are learning, we want our families to be heard, and we want people to be able to achieve their potential. We have that here, and we have the ability to do that. I do want to read my closing leadership statement to you. It's on my resume, it's on my wall in my office, because it's really important to me. And so I'm going to read it because I feel like it's who I am. My leadership is rooted in growth, belonging, and joy, very especially joy. I uplift overlooked voices. I always assume positive intent, and I partner with families to help every child thrive. I lead with optimism, but stay grounded in the realities our community faces. I think that I bring a unique perspective, and I want to work with a district like Southwick who is ready for some unique opportunities. Thank you again for your time and consideration. Thank you for your commitment and all you do as a school committee. And in closing, I would be honored to be the next superintendent of Southwick Town and Granville.
Super. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take another quick little bio break. And when we get back, we are going to give an opportunity for public comment. If you do want to do a public comment, I need your name and your address on there, and then we'll go through that. Hopefully within like 3 minutes for each person that's here. And we'll begin deliberations. So we're going to take a quick little break. Yeah. I got a lot before you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So Aaron, while you're at it, yeah, what do you mean? Solar. Where's the solar on it? Maybe there's some s'mores. I'll play it last. No idea. What do you think? I don't have to work out. So I'm like, I'm gonna do a quick one. Where you once they get up and walk out, you sound more like saying, but it's like started fucking away to mountains. Swimming. What are the songs? I think I saw that.
You know, Captain Thing, I was in the Dickinson, and he's got all the. And I saw no, it was over here on the side. He had all the guys that are moving or leaders meeting. And said, over here in Central Road, 7, 5, retire. That's what I said. I only noticed it because I saw it. They're talking about these scams. But
Wow.
So you educated them well?
So, yes, so they both slightly different.
it's got.
But they both are,
Which is where?
So it's 2.5 hours southeast. Southeast?
It's about an hour south of Boston.
An hour south.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
It's actually,
Sure.
Last week.
Or up.
So it is not, no, it is not, yeah, but it is on the tip. Like, yeah, yeah, so like the T goes right from campus. And I think it's a clear rail. So. Same.
You need that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Right.
For 5 years. And it was only gone the second or third month we thought. I'm taking on vacation.
Hello, sir.
How you
doing? All right, so it looks like it's you two.
Yeah.
That's right.
No big 20-minute talks, right? So what we'll do, you'll get back. Since we have good suggestions about you, name and where you're from, give your comments from there, and let's see if you can Awesome, thank you. And you can go first, and then after you go second. All right. Thanks for coming in, guys. What's it feel like to be a graduate?
Not even.
Not even fun. Yeah, not like, where are you going next year? Very good. For what? Law. Oh, you want to go to law school, right? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Very peaceful. Very nice.
Dartmouth?
No. We're graduating.
Oh, yeah, well, right now.
I fear I am. I would make that stuff.
Why?
Yeah, no, sweet.
Oh, well.
It's like one game.
And you're going where?
I'm going to Bridgewater State.
No, okay, so help me out. That's in Massachusetts, right? Okay.
It's about an hour south of Boston.
Okay, so south of, how far south? Quincy, like down, that's zone 20 minutes.
Super far.
It's past that,
It's
right?
right past that. It's kind of right between Boston and the Cape. If anything, a
Okay.
little closer to the Cape.
No, that's good.
It's
If we have nursing home in Quincy, we have one in south, south, Weymouth.
yeah,
South
I
of
think
that,
it's
right?
even past that.
Yeah.
It's about 2.5 hours depending on driving.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
down southeast.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And you're taking education.
I'm doing secondary education biology. It's pretty much.
So you want to be a high school teacher? Yes. Bio.
Or bio and STEM.
Much more mental.
Yeah, I'm going to STEM type position. And a lot bigger. Obviously, I have a big. Yeah, it's really close back.
Well, yeah, those two, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. Wrestling there, so it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, our first program is me busy. It's tough.
All right, listen.
Tough probably.
So it Zoe went in up under by University of Calgary.
Are you your brother going from here?
Westfield, they've been in the same classroom. since-
No, I have a twin brother, so probably the same, but like, I was in school and my brother had and my brother was in Boston, so that way we could still like see each other, like soccer, so that way I could go watch a game, like.
Which Boston school did you go to?
You went to a man.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Oh, okay. If that was, that was the first year that they accepted male students as they like over.
That's pretty good.
So the Maloney's did what you did.
Yeah,
They did
full of-
work with the- yeah.
East down.
South Carolina.
Yep.
And well,
Oh.
Olivia's.
So, yeah, they were, yeah, they did a big,
That's funny, I was just talking to their mom not that long ago.
You post.
Yeah, I was over there with her, we were on our way to Bridgewater, and we been up there for like half an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're really, he's here at Westfield.
We good?
Yeah.
Family ready? Right out their way. All right. Like the meeting is going on forever. We're still public. All right. So we have, oh, what do you got?
I just need to ask you something.
Oh, sure. 1 second, everybody.
So Ginger emailed me letters of recommendation she wanted me to pass out. You want me to print them and hand them out to everybody?
Didn't we already get there?
We did.
I guess it's from her current superintendent though. So she just emailed me and asked if I could hand them out. I just wanted to check with you.
I don't care. That's fine.
Alright, I'll do that.
I mean, it's a little late in the game for the last minute letter of recommendation, but sure, you can print them out.
Okay.
Okay, so while she's going to do that, we have 2 people that have signed up for public comment. And Asher Rose. So Aaron, off to you. Floor is yours.
Alright, I'm Aaron Petschke, I'm a now former student here.
Where do you live?
Say that, but I live up in Granville. As I am definitely not the one making decisions, I wanted to kind of show some parallels to you guys that I see coming from these 2 candidates. Obviously, they're both very highly qualified. I would start with Dr. Coleman. She has worked in a lot of districts and a lot of different districts in different strong central office roles and that kind of thing. And I very much appreciate what she brings here. I feel like her ability to bring people together to address situations would very much be appropriate to this role. However, I do feel something that would be tough for her to adjust to would be the size of our school. A lot of her comments today were very much about bigger schools and bigger districts, and we're a small school. So not that that would be a problem for her or anything that should affect your decision, but just something that I saw tonight. In terms of Mrs. Carrier, she is very much an inside candidate, and I know some people have feelings about that. I feel that it gives her a lot of information she can pull from going into this position. And she did bring other background here. So I feel like that's something very strong that she brings to the table. So I just wanted to kind of give you my thoughts about the 2 of those candidates and just where they're coming from. I hope you guys know something.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rose. Honey makes it feel a little different.
No. Okay, so I guess what I would say is one, my name is Asher Rose and I am a resident of Southwick and 2 Archers Lane. Okay. I guess the first thing I would say is it bothers me a little bit that there are few people here. I know Aaron's here and a couple other people, but I think it bothers me that there's no teachers here. And the reason why I mentioned that because I think there is a feeling of what happens if I speak out at the district. And when that does happen, I think there is a fear from teachers of what that looks like on retaliation or some other level of changing, there's a lot of budget cuts that are happening, so maybe positions might get let off. There's teachers now that have been here for, let's say, there's one that comes to mind for 22 years that was recently let go and then rehired back, not officially, but so I think that bothers me that there's people that aren't willing to speak up and say something. But to the specific candidates, in my personal opinion, I don't think either are the best candidates for the superintendent. I think what's needed most right now is an outside perspective. Because specifically there was one question that I asked during the meet and greets, and I said, what would you change about the school? And the internal candidate, Mrs. Carrier, replied saying nothing much. Which not to say that nothing needs to change or change has to happen, but when there are issues that need to be addressed and there is recent changes now with the budget and everything, something has to change, and I think that's something that's important for candidates coming in with an outside perspective. Dr. Coleman specifically, I don't know necessarily if she's the right choice, but I also think it's important to look to see the original candidates who applied, and I think it's concerning to hear that there was a candidate who did apply and then was never replied to for further steps moving forward in the process. So that's something that's concerning as well. So that's what I would leave with, and yeah, thank you.
Great, super, thank you very much. All right, so fun part, guys. So now we take these interviews and we publicly sort of review them so that we can hopefully come to a consensus and put forth a motion to potentially offer one of these fine young candidates a position to be our new superintendent. So as I said earlier, I'm gonna sort of hold my comments to the end. I think Pam's gonna wait till the second to the end. But I'm interested to hear what all of you thought. And then we go around the table, we can sort of figure out what we want to do. There is no rules to this. There is no check sheet that I've got. There's no perfect way to do this. But we're gonna go around the room and see what you guys thought. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
Just some things that I was hearing just made me think about some things that were said.
Sure.
I think that both of them are obviously have a high energy, have a lot of experience, are both looking for, to be seen, to listen to others, to be in a leadership role that's involved in the school, which I think is going to be huge. I think we need that. We need somebody who's present in the halls, who's friendly with the kids, who knows what's going on. So they both have that quality. I do think that there's change that the internal candidate is speaking of in terms of like committees for like that she's interested in, and getting together more with the teachers, listening to them more, realizing that there are concerns out there and things that need to be heard that maybe haven't been. So I do think that there is she's looking towards, changing some of the dynamics and some of the camaraderie maybe that's been within the schools. So having that recognizing that is huge. So that was interesting to me, and like something that piqued my interest, like the different things that she has, insight into that need to happen here, because she has been internal and has felt some of the feedback and seen things that have happened here. So I do think that that is a push in the right direction. That's a lot of notes too. I think Erin was very clear on her values and views of the schools and bringing the towns together, and having sort of an overall plan for what we want to work towards together. She has clear understanding of that, I think, and what's needed. But the things that stood out a lot were obviously the safety for the kids, right, and making sure that it's the environment. It's a good workplace, wanting to really improve upon that. I think just being involved, I think, with the teachers and having them have a say, it's huge. I think Dr. Coleman, she comes from a different type of maybe different background. I think some of the things are happening here that she might not necessarily be aware of. I think she could definitely bring some diversity and a different perspective, for sure. But I do think that Erin has been sort of on that trajectory of, being involved with all the data and all of the changes that have happened over even the last year. Like, I don't know how, scores have improved so much, and Erin has had her hand in a lot of that. So just seeing that she has made those connections. Obviously, that took a lot of effort with a lot of the teachers to make all of those improvements. You know, all the changes happening with the kids and reaching out to parents and all. So I do think that there's change.
Super.
Sorry, I just randomly spoke on.
Right, you wanna go, Jen?
Sure. I mean, I thought they both interviewed very well. Obviously, I wasn't at the first round of interviews. I was impressed by Dr. Coleman, like the way she presented. She definitely has some leadership experience and like very, clear examples of managing crisis and other things, right? And we've dealt with our own problems here. So I do think Erin has the insight, like obviously experience, knowledge, working with the teachers, et cetera. I think one of my concerns on the internal candidate is just current state of the teachers and the administration. And I don't know what that is really like, but that would be something, no matter who is elected, that I would like to see as like a very clear goal as part of the overall vision for like improvement, because it does seem like there's some sort of a disconnect there between what the staff, what the communication to the staff and faculty have been and working with the offices. Again, I'm not in school, but that's just my perception and my observations of sitting here for the last year. So I would say like they're both very strong candidates. I don't know if like we wanted to go through each question or
we don't have
certain
to.
topics.
I thought we'd go through this sort of general thing and then we get, if we need to, we certainly
I
can.
think if there were certain things, certain questions or certain answers that stuck out to you, I think it would be appropriate. Like if there was a certain question that you thought that a particular candidate answered very well, or vice versa, I think that it would be appropriate to bring that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back to my notes as you guys are talking. I think the plan, like, they both really talked about a multi-year plan, which I do think is important. I'm a finance person and having that strategic vision and, communication and stakeholders and everything, right? So they both kind of touched on that. So I think those are all like really positives. Yeah, again, for me right now, I would say like one of my factors for decision making, because I can appreciate like both sides, right? Like wanting some new perspective. And hearing seems like that is something that people in the town would like to. I also see the strong sides of Erin, right, which we know already. And I think she's perfectly, like, definitely capable of this job. So I think they're both good candidates, in my opinion. I'm probably gonna look back at my notes while we're talking here. I'm not gonna give you my opinion right this second, but just those are the things I'm weighing out in my head right now, right? In terms of what's best for like the future vision of our school district.
I found I was agreeing with a lot of what Melissa was saying, so, yeah, I mean, I thought they were both, obviously knowledgeable and well prepared. I like obviously like the research and I guess from Dr. Coleman, some of the things, she picked up or mentioned, I think we should be doing and should go ahead with. Branding the school maybe more in the district, and things like the junior dropout rate. I mean, that was the first time I heard that could be an issue. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, me either. So that's it. That was one of the points, like, what is that and where are we at?
Does it need?
I haven't heard about this issue in 5 years, so I don't know where we're at with that.
So I guess in terms of, kind of knowledge, experience, the strategic plan approach, I agree with. Transparency, communication. I think they've kind of presenting fairly similar, goals and visions of what they would bring to the job. I did find listening to both of them that I found Erin more structured, and maybe that's just because that's how my brain works, but in terms of answering the questions very specifically, talking through them, having points to back up each of the different answers, I found that a more kind of something I could follow more easily, I think, in terms of listening to the presentations and the answers. I did like Erin's focus on culture, because I think it's often, it can be very wishy-washy and a sort of term that gets thrown around. But, talking about a culture of appreciation, if there are kind of morale, trust issues that can be addressed, that's a really, place where we need to be starting. And also kind of defining that sense, mission and vision and, goals. We all know what they are and we all, are here because we believe in them, but you can go a little bit further in terms of how you define what makes this a special school district. So I kind of like that she highlighted that. But yeah, it's more for now.
Right.
I've already been said, like Judy said it.
We get towards the end, we're
I
gonna
know.
be a lot.
I thought it was amazing how Dr. Coleman had looked up stuff about our district, like taking that time to research versus Erin, because she's a district. I think that kind of goes to both of their leadership styles, where Erin's a very data-driven person, so she has that like list. I'm sure she has most of this everywhere in her house, or I don't know. Good for her. She's very organized. Love that for her. I think Coleman. I wish I could be her.
She's your daughter nodding behind you.
Gosh, I did not turn around and ask her anything, knowing that was her dog. I think that sometimes an outside perspective can be nice to get different ideas, different opinions. Our opinions are shaped by our experiences. So Dr. Coleman coming from somewhere totally different. Not that Erin hasn't, she's been other places, as she stated. Could be beneficial as far as like new ideas and cultivating and seeing our culture from the outside, I guess, and seeing what they want to see versus Erin being in-house and having had relationships with staff as principal, now director of curriculum, and what that looks like for her as turning into she's their boss. Of these people that she's been friends with. I think it'd be a challenge for her. Not saying that she can't do it, but that's definitely gonna be a challenge. It's kind of leaving those ties and seeing that these are your staff members and these are not your friends, and you can't treat them as such when they're making those hard decisions. I don't know, I think that's both qualified and good in different ways. Makes it hard.
All right, you're up.
Well, first of all, to folks that are not here, but that are listening, I want to thank everybody that has participated in the process, including the folks that took the time to provide their feedback in writing to us. I did read every single one. And I thought that folks who participated were very thoughtful in their responses. And I like everybody, I feel that we have two excellent candidates that represent kind of different things. And I think it comes down to what we as a committee most value as we move forward. I think that Dr. Coleman has a wealth of administrative experience in different districts. And as a result, I think that her experience in different positions and in different districts had led her to ask some really good questions of our district. She obviously doesn't know the answers, and in the first year would have to spend that first year learning the answers to those questions, but she certainly knew what kinds of questions to ask. I think that if the committee values somebody with a fresh perspective and new ideas, I think that Dr. Coleman could certainly offer that. I think something that impressed me in any time in which I have interacted with her personally, which now has been 3 times, her smile is infectious, and she really is a calm listener. And not knowing her personally, I wanted to believe what she had to say. I've worked very hard to go into this entire process with an open mind. And you know, I think I came away from this last interview with Erin, genuinely believing what she was saying. I was very impressed with the way that Erin was very strategic in how she dissected the questions, how she answered the questions, and then how she summarized her answers to each question. Like Judy, I picked up on that. I had an easier time following it. I appreciated that. And if that represents her leadership style, which I think it does, I can very much, yes, exactly, very much appreciate it. I also very much value and appreciate that this is her home. You know, she doesn't have the same kind of administrative experience. The breadth of her experience is different. However, the depth of her experience in this district, I do feel is an asset. And when she was talking about sort of the different ways that she's approached different things, I was here for all of that. And I watched her navigate those things. You know, and she talked about the PACT committee. You know, I watched her navigate that. And, you know, when she talked about listening without being defensive, I think that is huge as we move forward. And, you know, this was a situation where it wasn't just I wanted to believe her, I did believe her because I saw it happen. Her emphasis on listening to understand. Again, that spoke to me. You know, not being afraid of a media presence. That spoke to me. So while I understand that there are both strengths and weaknesses when you have an internal candidate, I do feel that Erin genuinely has her finger on the pulse of this district and made it very clear tonight what she thought our opportunities for growth and improvement were, and made it very clear in terms of how she would strategically attack those things. And I did come out of tonight believing that. You know, when I look back at my notes and I look at the questions that I feel that each candidate answered very well, you know, I really like the way that Dr. Coleman answered question number 6 about staff leadership and organizational culture. She mentioned being vulnerable and being adaptive. And I think that that's really, that was noteworthy to me. You know, I really liked the way that Erin answered question number 4 about community relations and communication. Listening to the fears of people, validating them and responding to them, that really resonated with me. And just the way that that Erin pointed out that, you know, people can be controversial, or controversy stems from when people truly do care, is true. Those 2 questions, number 4 and number 6, I think are very important to me personally as we move forward as a district. So the fact that both candidates answered those questions quite well, I think makes our job harder. But I do think that it comes down to what we value. Do we value a fresh perspective, new ideas, with the caveat of a bit of a learning curve? Or do we value someone who has been in the district, but clearly knows this district well, and may have less of an initial learning curve, but maybe a greater long-term learning curve? I don't know, because they're very different backgrounds. And I shall pass the buck to you, my friend.
So I always look at these things from a very little bit of a different perspective. As the chair, I interact with central office all the time. Hundreds of hours over the last 5 years. And the candidates, the best thing that I think that we were able to do is, we were wondering what we were going to be able to get from an external candidate pool if we were out there. We didn't find 40, we didn't find 10. I mean, but we had 2 other ones that we would have brought forward as finalists. We had one that stepped down. And I don't think anybody, whether it's the teachers or anybody here or anybody in the public, cannot say that we did not have an open search and have 2 qualified candidates come before us for this position. We have also, in the last 3 or 4 years, done an extremely diligent job with respect of succession planning and growing and enhancing the administrative positions that we have at all of our schools. The communication in the district has continued to move in the right direction. And I know I've said this before, if somebody would have told me 5 years ago that the relationship that I would have now with our current superintendent would be as strong and as productive that it is, I would say, no way. And I don't think Jenna or I would disagree with that. The effort that goes in between the chair and the superintendent is just intense in a good way. I mean, there's a lot of communication that needs to happen. Being able to get that information in a succinct and timely manner, and to be able to follow through and to be detail oriented so that it's not necessarily a question of whether they're doing it right or wrong. It's, are they following the policy, and are we doing things the right way, and are we putting ourselves up for exposure that we don't need to be doing. That relationship I have with Superintendent Willard now, and it is phenomenal. Over the last couple of years, since Aaron stepped into that Director of Curriculum and Development role, there have been numerous instances where Superintendent Willard wasn't available, or there was an issue that came up that I had to deal directly with her. The PACT example is one of them. She jumped right in and said, I'll take it. There was a challenge that we were having. It was kind of going off the rails. We wanted to be able to make sure that that was successful and helpful for us. And she jumped right in to do it. We purposely gave the candidates the questions ahead of time. Like Pam and Judy, I think both candidates did a good job. I think one of them stood out to me, took advantage of that time to make sure that when she came before us to interview for, from their perspective, the most important position that they could ever aspire to. One of them tonight was extremely prepared. One of them did a good job, but one of them was extremely prepared and did a fantastic job. The answers were direct. The answers were detailed. The answers were thoughtful. They were, that's what I was hoping to get out of this. As a superintendent, sometimes you're going to be thrown stuff that is going to be completely out of the blue, out of left field, and at a moment's notice, and they need to be able to react. Sometimes they're going to have times to prepare, and they're going to be able to put some effort and some time into it to make sure that they have very thoughtful and very direct and very specific answers. That showed tonight. Outside, I personally think that we have the best of both worlds. I have seen Erin in a number of different circumstances, and tonight was one of those, with all the items that she's indicated that she wants to improve upon or change or would have done differently. It is very different when you are not driving the bus, but you are in the second or third seat. It's important for you to be able to follow through and to be able to follow the directions and the orders of your commander. That doesn't mean that you can't have ideas of your own or of ways that you would want to specifically improve them. If you came into a middle school, that was a mess. She fixed it. She's got a number of years outside this district with ideas and things that she's done that she was able to not only implement, but put in place. She has brought forward ideas to me when I've had conversations with her this year about things that we want to be able to do differently. We now have an active and actually full Facebook page that goes out that does stuff that was all done by her. Nobody asked her to do it. You took it on and did it. She's got a plan that I haven't even seen yet.
So I'm passing.
That is already detailed as to what she wants to be able to do going forward if she was given the opportunity to move forward. 2 weeks ago, we were presented with preliminary score results from science of reading and MCAS tests. We are moving light years from where we were before COVID. We are one of 65 schools, I think, right, Pam? 65, whatever that number was. 63 schools that are at or above pre-COVID levels. We have 90% of our 80%, 90%, 90%, 89% of our kids from 2 through 6 are reading at grade level. They weren't doing that 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I came on the committee. We have MCAS scores that are above state in every level preliminarily because they're quarantined right now. We are on a very positive trajectory. And from an executive perspective, looking at this, I have spent my entire career making sure that I've got the right people in the right place at the right time to make sure that you can continue with growth. And when you do need to switch tracks, it's usually because something's going wrong that you want to be able to try to fix. We had 2 really good candidates that came in front of us. I got 2 people that are extremely similar in a lot of the same areas that I value. To me, difference is, why do I want to go with somebody that's the same thing when I've already got somebody that's got similar traits and in a lot of aspects, stronger traits of the same thing? We're on the right direction. I think she brings forward outside ideas, even though she isn't technically an internal candidate, that those things that you want that we can bring to the table, honestly, I think she holds both of those. And I think that you can have an outside person that's been here for 8 years that brings a plethora of ideas to the table. That all I see when I interact with her, when I've done this over the last 2 years, is somebody that is thoughtful, that is somebody that is extremely detail oriented, that is not, I don't have to reach out to her 4 times to get the same answer done. I can't say that for everybody that's been in that position that she's in. That's been stuff that I've struggled with over the last 5 years. We have heard from Liz that there's not a ton of people out there. And we've also heard from Liz that Aaron would be an absolute steal for any other district in this state to grab. We've heard from the state that said, because of the challenges that we went through 2 or 3 years ago, that if we have somebody internal that is strong, that the state would recommend that we try to go down that route. MASC has said that their most successful candidates that have moved up into a superintendent position are strong internal candidates because they already work in the district that they're in, are dedicated and motivated to do this, and they already know all the blemishes. They're not coming in vying for a position when they know all the things that are going on in here and going, oh, you know what, I think I'll try it anyway. So, to me, I think we get the best of both worlds in the same person. But
Yeah, if you look at this too, like she really details out like how she wants to address.
it's
For me, like the like I mentioned, right, one of my big concerns is the gap in whatever the teachers and staff in the offices. she has that all in here, like.
I mean, it's, and here's an interesting thing, because this is, and you made a comment about this, and it came up, somebody asked it at one of the listening sessions. What are you gonna do when you move, if you move into the superintendent role, and all these people that are your friends are now your subordinates? Well, honestly, I would challenge that couldn't happen with her, because the people that were her peers when she came into this district, she was a principal. The two other principals at the time when she came into the district are no longer in the district. So only one person that's in here since she moved into that role that could be even remotely considered a peer, and it's our principal of our elementary school. But for the most of that interaction, she was her subordinate. And within months, when Emma moved into the principal position, Aaron moved into the director of curriculum development. I don't think that's going to be as big of a leap, because you're not dealing with a teacher that was a teacher in the district, and then she moves into a superintendent role and then has to deal with people that were her friends and her colleagues and her peers and now are reporting directly to her. That, I agree, would be an extremely difficult job. That's not what we're dealing with here. I think we're also going with that.
So like from other teachers in that language was there,
Okay.
but that's a different.
No, I know, and here's the thing, when we were.
What you think happens and what actually happens are. two
Understood.
things.
Understood, and I guess here's the other challenge, that's the other point I want to say. Whoever is in a superintendent position is never gonna have every one of their teachers that work for them in a district like them.
Oh, absolutely.
I think if that happens, we got a whole other big problem. I don't need, nor do I frankly care if the teachers like the superintendent or don't like the superintendent. I care that they respect the superintendent. And I care that the superintendent cares about them and wants to make sure that they're doing everything they can to help them do their job. Now, doing that requires them to hold people accountable. As soon as you do that, there are going to be people that don't like that. It's not a position, or any executive position. You cannot look at the results as to whether, okay, they like them or not. That if you do that you go down that road, forget it, it's not going to work out. It's all I know is the interaction that I've had and what I've seen and what the results that we've gotten. We would be remiss not to put her into this position. And the transition that we would have would be absolutely, you could not wish for something that we are given the opportunity here to do. The superintendent's going to be with us for another year. If somebody's in the director of curriculum development role that would go into a hybrid sort of setup, or she would do that job, she'd be able to learn on the side, she'd get all of that training done ahead of time. She knows the district, she's got a whole plan that she wants to be able to implement, that I don't doubt any single one of those points at all are going to be done and reported on and completed.
I wanted to emphasize.
No,
something
Gloria.
too, just that, I know like the concern, right, that like she's friends with the current superintendent and it's just gonna continue in that trajectory, like, because she's, already working alongside of her. Some people are a little bit like, maybe apprehensive about that.
About her being friends with this current
Well,
superintendent?
I think so.
Being primed for the position.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
I heard
that in the
I myself has raised
community
concern
right.
about, hey, look, we're just taking pawns and we're just putting our people where we want them to.
Well, and
to
hence
be.
why we wanted to look outside, right, to give the
Absolutely.
opportunity.
I
What I
have
wanted to
personally
say was,
expressed
though,
concerns about
I
that.
do feel like seeing her present in like the face of like the leadership role tonight was definitely, coming from her. And like things that she was suggesting she would like to do, and she wants to make change. And she wants to get more involved with hearing the teachers and has a whole plan for that. And maybe being, in a different way, being more supportive and not being defensive, how she wants to present herself. So she's, to me, clearly thought that through and understands that there is some disconnect or something there within the district. And, I'm in a leadership role and work. Just knowing like, you're not gonna make everyone happy, but you have to be there and be supportive and be able to listen and to try to help people be as successful as they can be. And I feel like I did hear a lot of that from her and wanting to help people and still wanting to remain a coach and a mentor and all of those things. So I think that her having that insight into like, this isn't gonna be like, it's gonna be a process. There's gonna be time, people need to adjust. She realizes the areas maybe where she's gonna need to give a little bit more to help work that through. I think that's huge. She's not just coming in blindly like, everyone's gonna be great, everyone's gonna love you.
Yeah.
There's gonna be, it's gonna be a little bit of a.
I mean, look, she certainly understands the financial challenges that we're going through. She certainly, I mean, it's her current role as director of curriculum development does not actually require her to be at school committee meetings. Other than when we come and ask them to do a presentation.
She, in the time that I have served on the school committee, she is, which now has been longer than any of you. She has been the only director of curriculum and instruction that has regularly attended school committee meetings. I just do want to put that out there.
And she does follow through.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, look, it's this whole, she was involved with the budget. She has put forth ideas that are outside the box, which I certainly appreciate because that's normally my MO. I have found her extremely thoughtful and not just on, she's not we're gonna do it this way because we've always done it this way, which I think is great because there's always opportunities for improvement. It's yeah, I'm not worried about her relationship with the current superintendent at all. If anything, I think it's an opportunity that and knowing Jen and speaking with Jen, if this came to pass, you've got to understand that Jen is also extremely invested in this district. And for her to have an opportunity to work with Aaron for this upcoming year in that role, it's gonna be like trying to make sure that that she's got as much information that she can for her to make sure that when we get to next July, that it is about as smooth a transition as we can get. And some of these ideas that she came up with tonight, I haven't even heard. I think it's a great idea getting the teachers and the other stakeholders involved in the strategic plan. That's the one thing every year when we go to the retreat, I'm like, okay, this seems like the same dang thing every year. Like I think that's a great idea. We've already started talking about it now. We're going to involve the public into more of the budgetary side of this. We are going to hit a 2.5% override vote, whether we like it or not. So the more information and the better that we can educate the public as to what we're dealing with, and I think it's exactly what Aaron said. We need to figure out what we're standing for. What do we want? What does the district want? And then once we decide that, if you have to go into a 2.5% override because you need to be able to provide what the district and the towns have all said that they want, I think that's an easy vote. If you go into a 2.5% override and people don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, or how you're going to do it, it'll go down. Ask South Hadley. It's where you run into this.
So it was important to me that we do our due diligence. It was important to me that we listen to concerns. It was very important to me that we provide whoever the next superintendent is the opportunity to prove that they deserve the position. And, I know, and Melissa, you alluded to it, and, I think that there were concerns about simply, priming an internal candidate to take over. I heard those concerns. And it was important to me that we give our internal candidate the opportunity to prove herself. And I do feel that not just tonight, and in the way that she was very strategic about answering the questions, providing for us what her vision of the future looks like, that she prioritized it into 3 buckets: strategic planning, staff morale, and budget. And what that would look like over a 3-year phase. But also in what I have seen in the past, in terms of her ability, and this is important to me because I think that none of us are ever going to make everybody happy. And whatever decision we make today, there will be people that are happy with it, there are people that will not be happy with it. But it is very important to me that anybody in a leadership position have the ability to truly listen. And I do think that both of our candidates do. But I can say that I have seen Erin demonstrate it over and over and over again. And I genuinely believe that you're not going to make everybody happy. But it is very important to be able to listen, validate, as she said, and respond. And I keep coming back to that. She not only has she said it, but she's proven it, and I've witnessed it, and I believe it. And for those reasons, I am very comfortable with moving forward. And I'd like to give anybody else the opportunity to say anything. But I was very impressed with what I saw tonight from both candidates. But I know that it was important to me to give folks the opportunity for themselves, and I'm very impressed with what I saw.
All right. I need a motion to put one of these people forward as a superintendent, and I need a second, and then we'll take a vote. So if somebody wants to do that, it shouldn't be me as the chair. It should be somebody else, anybody else. You were 99% there, Pam. So
You know what? I felt like you were going. I thought I wasn't going to do this.
I think you
because
locked
I just
yourself
wanted
into
the
it.
position to play out.
Yeah.
But I believe that Erin has earned this. And I'd like to make a motion to put Erin forward. So.
All right. Any further discussion on this before we vote? All right. Can I get a show of hands to accept Erin Carrier as the person that we would like to offer the superintendent position starting July 1st, 2027? All in favor? Amanda, let the record show the motion passes 6-0-0. We've got one thing that we need to do that we're going to do an action item on real quick. Pays this summer, like we did last summer. We need a motion to allow the chairman of the school committee to be able to sign on behalf of the committee for payrolls that happened after this meeting, so that we don't slow down the paying of our staff. We did that. We technically can do this for the whole year, but we do it for the summer. So I'm going to put that. Now we do what we can do, if we can make this really simple. And since we've kind of almost done it the whole year anyway, if you guys want me to do it, we just put forward a motion that we can have the chair sign off on them, and then when we meet for school committee meetings, everybody can kind of sign off on them at that point. Kind of back them up if we want to, or we just have it. I guess before I put the motion, do we want to just have it where the chair signs off on these things, or
Like overall, or just during the summertime?
we can do overall if you want, or do you?
I think we should
Summer,
throw it
fine.
All right, fine. So let's do it for the summer, like we've done. We'll sign them during the school committee meetings when we've got that. All right, motion forward. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Amanda, let the record show the motion passes 6-0-0.
Make sure that you tell Karen Parker
Oh, yeah,
when you're not
listening
gonna
or-
be around.
Don't worry about, oh yeah, no, I already got that.
Because
I'll take care of that.
so that she times the.
Well, we've been able to do that where I can give her verbal and then I come back to sign, so we're able to take care of it. Okay, so. Did I forget anything, Amanda?
We've covered everything. Do we need to go into executive?
You need to go,
Go into
yeah,
executive.
right, so what I need to do now is. We're gonna go into executive. We're gonna have a private discussion on the negotiation of the contract. But I need a motion to end the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn. All right, second. All in favor?
Like we need.
All right, Amanda, let the record show the motion passes 6-0. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Have a great night.
Yeah.